When there is just too much sports, there's the GOAT podcast, BLEAT report to cover it. Welcome to this edition of the GOAT Sports Podcast. I'll be talking about the NBA Finals, the Knicks versus the San Antonio Spurs. New York entered the finals relying on leadership and scoring brilliance of Jalen Brunson. Surrounded by the versatile two-way player of Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, and Josh Hart, San Antonio countered with length, athleticism, and youth, and the unique defensive presence of Wembanyama, whose ability to alter games on both ends became one of the defining themes of the series. Through 5 games, the overall statistical gap was surprisingly small. The Knicks averaged roughly 107 points per game, while the Spurs averaged around 105. Rebounding totals were nearly even. New York entered the finals relying on the leadership and scoring brilliance of Jalen Brunson. Surrounded by the versatile two-way player Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, and Josh Hart, San Antonio countered with length, athleticism, youth, and unique defensive presence from Wembanyama, whose ability to alter games on both ends became one of the defining themes of the series. Through 5 games, the overall statistical gap was surprisingly small. The Knicks averaged roughly 107 points per game, while the Spurs averaged around 105. Rebounding totals were nearly even, assist numbers were close, possession after possession, the margin separating the two teams often came down to the execution in the final minutes. The 2026 NBA Finals was a collision between two completely different stories. On one side stood the New York Knicks, a franchise carrying decades of frustration, pressure, and expectations, and on the other side stood the San Antonio Spurs, the league's new powerhouse built around Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, and rookie phenom Dylan Harper. By the time the series ended, the Knicks had won 4 games to 1, but the final result barely captured how tense, emotional, and competitive the series actually was. Nearly every game featured major momentum swings, late-game drama, and stretches where it looked like either team could seize control of the championship. The opening game immediately established the tone. San Antonio came out energized, feeding off its crowd and forcing New York into difficult shots. Wembanyama controlled the paint early while Fox pushed the pace whenever opportunities appeared. Yet every time the Spurs threatened to pull away, Brunson responded. The opening game immediately established the tone. San Antonio came out energized, feeding off its crowd and forcing New York into difficult shots. Wembanyama controlled the paint early, while Fox pushed the pace whenever opportunities appeared. Yet every time the Spurs threatened to pull away, Brunson responded. Whether it was a tough mid-range jumper, a drive through traffic, or a perfectly timed three-pointer, he continually steadied the Knicks. New York eventually pulled away for a 105-95 victory, stealing a home court advantage and sending an early message that experience could overcome youth. Game 2 was even more dramatic. The Spurs appeared poised to even the series multiple times, but the Knicks repeatedly answered. Every possession felt heavier than the last. Players dove for loose balls, bodies crashed into the floor, and every rebound carried enormous importance. The game ultimately came down to the final possessions, where New York escaped with a razor-thin 105-104 victory. Suddenly, the Spurs found themselves down 2-0, despite feeling as though they had played well enough to win at least one game. Returning home for Game 3, San Antonio finally delivered the breakthrough it desperately needed. Harper attacked relentlessly, Fox controlled tempo, and Wembanyama dominated defensively. The Spurs won 115-111, reminding everyone that the series was far from over. The atmosphere in the arena felt electric. Fans sensed momentum shifting. Analysts began discussing whether the younger Spurs had finally solved New York's late-game formula. Then came Game 4, the turning points in this final and one of the most astonishing games ever played in the championship stage. For much of the night, San Antonio looked unstoppable. Their offense flowed effortlessly. Every Spurs run seemed bigger than the last. The lead climbed past 10 points, then 15, then 20. Eventually, the advantage reached 29 points, a margin that appeared impossible to overcome in an NBA Finals game. Knicks players looked exhausted. Spurs fans were already imagining a tied series. Yet, New York never completely unraveled. Possession by possession, they began cutting into the deficit. A defensive stop, a transition basket, another stop, another basket. Slowly, the impossible became plausible. The crowd that had been roaring only minutes earlier grew nervous. Every Spurs turnover felt larger than the previous one. Every Knicks basket increased the pressure. The final minutes unfolded in pure chaos. Brunson attacked relentlessly, Bridges hit critical shots, Hart flew around collecting rebounds. Suddenly, New York was within striking distance. Then they were tied, and they were ahead. By the end of the night, the Knicks had completed the largest comeback in NBA Finals history, stealing a 107-106 victory that transformed the entire championship race. Instead of heading into Game 5 with a tied series, the Spurs now faced elimination. Game 5 carried the tension of a season hanging in balance. San Antonio played with desperation from the opening tip. Their defense swarmed. Wembanyama blocked shots that seemed destined for the basket. Dylan Harper attacked fearlessly. The Spurs built an early lead and maintained control for most of the night. At one point, they led by 16 points. Every possession felt like a battle. The score remained low because neither team could generate easy offense. Players fought through screens, challenged every shot, and treated every loose ball as if it would determine the championship. Entering the fourth quarter, the Spurs still appeared in command. Then Jalen Brunson took over. The shift happened gradually at first: a pull-up jumper, a driving layup, a pair of free throws, then another jumper, then a three-pointer. Suddenly, the lead was shrinking. Spurs defenders switched assignments. They trapped him, they pressured him higher on the floor. Nothing worked. Brunson seemed to find space where none existed. Every possession became a test of composure. Every shot felt enormous. As the clock ticked lower, the pressure inside the arena became almost tangible. The Spurs, who had looked comfortable for most of the evening, suddenly appeared tense. Passes became less precise. Open looks stopped falling. Meanwhile, Brunson continued attacking. During one stretch, he scored 13 consecutive Knicks points, dragging New York back into the game almost single-handedly. By the final minutes, this contest had become less about strategy and more about nerve. The Knicks trusted their star. The Spurs searched desperately for answers. Brunson finished with 45 points, one of the greatest finals closeout performances ever recorded. He shot 14 for 27 from the field, knocked down 4 3-pointers, and repeatedly delivered when the Knicks needed him the most. Wembanyama battled throughout the night, collecting 14 rebounds and recording 5 blocks, while Dylan Harper contributed 25 points in an impressive effort. Yet, the Knicks found a way. When the final possessions arrived, New York executed. San Antonio could not. The buzzer sounded with the Knicks holding on to a 94-90 victory. Players embraced at center court, coaches celebrated, fans erupted. The series statistics reflected just how competitive this matchup had been. The Spurs led for long stretches across multiple games. They possessed elite defense, tremendous young talent, and enough scoring to challenge any team in the league. Yet New York consistently found answers in moments where championships are decided. Brunson's final average of more than 32 points per game, combined with his leadership and late-game shot-making, provided the foundation. Around him, Bridges delivered crucial two-way play, Hart supplied relentless energy, and Anunoby provided elite perimeter defense, and Towns contributed size and scoring when needed. Across 5 games, the finals featured huge comebacks, narrow finishes, superstar performances, defensive battles, and constant momentum swings. Every game seemed to carry its own dramatic storyline, creating a championship series that felt tense from the opening tip of Game 1 until the final buzzer of Game 5. And that's our show. Thank you for listening to the GO.AT Sports Podcast. We'll be taking a small break over the summer, but we will return soon. And be sure to catch a new interview with guest star Shadley Vince Scoutquick. And be sure to reach us on Instagram for any shoutouts or comments on the GO.AT Sports Podcast. See you next time.